Shalom everyone, and this week we are studying Parashat Metsora. This is the fifth parasha in the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, and you can find it on the book of Leviticus, chapter 14, verse 1. וידבר השם אל משה לאמור, זאת תהיה תורת המצורע. The second verse in page 14, this is the law of the leopard person, the person who has tzarat, leprosy. We're talking about the biblical leprosy, not the medical disease that is called leprosy today. B'yom Tarato, on the day of his cleansing. Okay, we started to learn about leprosy in Parashat Tazria last week, but that goes more to this parasha, this week, Parashat Metsora. So what is that we have about the Metsora and about especially the cleanliness, the cleansing of the Metsora and the healing of the Metsora? And there's something that is important because if you read, it says, verse 3, and the Kohen, the priest, will come out of the camp because whoever was diagnosed with leprosy cannot be with everybody else. He has to be isolated, quarantined outside the dwellings of the people, okay, outside the camp, outside the city or the village. And when the Kohen realizes that it says that the tzara, the leprosy, is healed, then the Kohen will take 2 living birds, and it has to be pure birds, which means the ones that are in the list of the pure birds in the previous parashot, and a branch of a cedar tree, and shni tolat, it's a red thing, very red color, and a zov, which is hyssop. Okay? So what's about, and that will be the ceremony of the purification, the cleansing, the healing of the leprosy, that from that moment, that person can go back into a normal life. And Rashi, the great commentator, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki of France, 11th century, says, something like this, because the leprosy, but he's using the word negaim, will soon come to the meaning of the word negaim, coming from the Hebrew word nega, nun gimel ain, very important word. Because the negaim, ba'im leshon hara, they come because of leshon hara, bad mouthing. Shu ma'aseh pitputei dvarim, which is talking. לפיכך הוזקקו לטהרתו ציפורים. That's why you need birds for the purification. Why birds? Because birds, they are the symbol of chattering. They're always chattering, they're always making noise and speech, and that's the healing. And the cedar tree is in Hebrew, the word erez, cedar, is when you want to say about somebody that is tall and strong, he is tall as a cedar. Gavoa vechazak ke'erez. And it's also a very common name in modern Israel for a boy, erez, somebody tall and strong. Okay? You take a cedar tree. Why? Because the Rashi says, because the infliction of the leprosy comes because of the word rudeness, being rude. And because the erez, the cedar tree, is a symbol of standing tall and strong, which is a symbol of rudeness and pride, then you need to use a cedar tree. Which means, something from homeopathy, similarities can heal. Okay? Ushni tolat, what do you need? The red color and the hyssop. Because The red color comes from worms, and a worm is a symbol of the lower place. That's the opposite of the cedar tree, which means how to cure pride and rudeness by thinking about the humility of a worm, and also a zov. A zov, hyssop, is a very low, very short plant, and the hyssop is a symbol of, again, humility, like the worm. Okay, so what are we learning over here? Most of the parasha is about the healing of the leper, about the person that got the biblical leprosy, we'll come to it, and about the healing of houses that had leprosy too, like houses with leprosy. Let's see how it's all connected, okay? How it is all connected. First of all, the word that we said, the common word of all different kinds of leprosy, as we said, this is nega. And we learn from the book of Formation, Sefer Yetzirah, that the word nega is the reverse of the word oneg. Nega is a blemish, okay? A blemish, and especially when you say nagua to lenagaim, it's all about infliction and contagious kind of infliction. Contagious, it's also malignant, okay? Now, that is connected to what? Why would somebody get that? The infliction, rudeness, gossiping, bad-mouthing, and it is all connected. We know that one of the biggest diseases of any era is about being rude, about selfishness, and about the result, the outcomes of selfishness is rude and also bad-mouthing. And now there's a whole issue about it in the Zohar. The whole thing about bad-mouthing, how terrible it is. So the Zohar is teaching us I'm reading in the Zohar Parashat Metsora, Perush HaSulam, the Sulam translation, verse 14. First, we'll read from the Zohar itself. Ta chazi, come and see. Kol chovei alma, kudsha brichu mechaper alai. All sins in the world can be atoned by the Holy Blessed be He. How? B'tshuva, with repentance. Bar me'ahu lishana bisha, except from bad-mouthing. דאפיק שום בי של חברי. והוא כמו דכתיב, זאת תהיה תורת המצורע. זוהי תורתו של מוציא שם רע. What does it mean, bad-mouthing? That a person is putting a bad name on somebody else. Okay, that's called bad-mouthing, which means we are talking about destroying somebody's reputation. And we already learned that it says, Zot tiyeh Torat HaMetzora. What does it mean? As we read in verse 2, this is the law of the leopard person. Okay, and the answer is, Zoti Torato shel Motzi Shem Ra. So we learned the meaning is, this is the law for whoever badmouth somebody else. Or it doesn't say somebody, it says Motzi Shem Ra, the one who brings a bad name. Now, it doesn't say bad name for a person, and we'll see this is really important. Rabbi Chia said, Kol man de'apik lishana bisha, whoever is bad-mouthing somebody else, it doesn't say somebody else, whoever is talking bad about, leshon hara, which is bad-mouthing, estavan le kol shafui, it brings impurity to each one of his limbs and organs, spiritually and physically. And he will become a leopard. Okay? Begin da'i mila bisha, salka v'it'arucha misava aloi v'isab. The moment the person is bad-mouthing anything, somebody, something else, that word that the person pronounces with the intention to badmouth somebody else, to bring bad reputation to somebody else, and we will see what does it mean, these words go up to the outer side, to the other world, and they draw in impurity, negativity, and the result will be leprosy, which means, what does it mean, leprosy? We'll see. And that will bring, so the moment the person is full with that negative, horrible energy that he brought upon himself, you think you hurt somebody else when you badmouth them. First of all, you bring impurity, bad spirits upon yourself. Think about journalists. Well, what a dangerous profession. Okay? בגין דהי מילה בישה סלקה והתאה רוחה מסעבה אלוהי והסתאב, עד די להסתאבה מסבין לי, במילה דתתה התאר מילה אחרה. Okay, which means whoever is bad-mouthing, he is bringing impurity, bad spirit upon his organs of his body and soul, and he should be quarantined. Why? Because that bad speech, evil speech, goes above and brings in the spirit of impurity. It becomes impure. And whoever tries to make others impure, he gets impure first. Okay? Now, this is terrible. Verse 16, Rabbi Yehuda said, זאת שהיא המלכות תהיה ודאי כנגדו להיפרע ממנו. And Malchut, the Shekhinah, okay, the Holy Spirit will get a revenge against a person like this, because the one who badmouth others, okay, it's the name in Hebrew is Metsora, the person who has leprosy, but in Hebrew Metsora, it is a combination of two words, Motzi Ra, bringing bad reputation on something else. So when it says that the day he is purified, he should be brought to the Kohen, we learn from that Shemi sheyesh bo lashon hara, whoever speaks bad about others, speaks lashon hara, ein tfilato nichneset lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. His prayer cannot come, when it cannot go up and cannot enter the vicinity of God. Why? Because the moment the person is bad-mouthing others, he is drawing upon himself impure spirit, and that prevents the prayers to go up. Only when a person is repenting, if the person repented, okay, and he accepted upon himself the ways of getting closer to the light of God and not being the person he used to be before. What does he say? Biyom ta'aratov uva lakohen. On the day that he purifies, he will be brought into the Kohen. Okay, what is the Kohen? The Kohen, yes, it's a priest, but we don't have acting Kohanim today, okay, in power, working in the temple. So what's in it for us? The Kohen is the power of chesed, the power of loving kindness. That's basically the godly providence. Okay, so let us try to understand what does that mean, because this is really important in order to understand who are we and what are we doing over here. So when we go back to the creation itself, and the creation, when we learn about the creation, we learn that there is one very important concept, like the foundation of the whole thing of the creation. מחשבת הבריאה להיטיב לנבראיו. The thought behind the creation is that the Creator wanted that his creatures can experience the good he wants to share with them. Now, in other places, and you see the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, is bringing the same thing, and again from another aspect. The Creator created the universe for us, souls, vessels, desire to receive, for the purpose that he can share with us pleasure. Okay? The word in Hebrew for pleasure is oneg, ein, nun, gimel. And that's from the verse, as titanag al Hashem, which means in the prophecies, when he speaks about, what's the purpose of a human being? You should bring yourself to a place in which you can feel oneg, the pleasure of God. That's the purpose of creation. That's the purpose of every human being, to experience God's pleasure. Pleasure, oneg, which is the feeling of bliss, fulfillment, happiness, all that is great, of great pleasure. That's the destiny of every human soul. However, because, as again, we go back to the Ramchal, because in our world, we cannot receive anything, any fulfillment, any achievement, any bliss, any pleasure for free, because we were created in the image of God, and therefore we cannot stand free pleasure. We need to earn it. We need to own it by our own efforts. And therefore, when the world is being created, we go back to the book of formation, Sefer Yetzirah, and it says, the world is being created for oneg, the pleasure. However, in order for us to be able to earn that pleasure, that's our being, there's nothing more precise, focused about who are we and what we're here for. We're creatures that were created to experience pleasure. That's deep in our core, and we cannot deny that. Any other emotions are basically against our will and our nature. And if we just go with those thinking and desires and so on, we go away from who we are. Okay, so what is teshuvah, repentance in Hebrew? Teshuvah means that we go back into being our own true selves. We're here to experience pleasure, oneg. However, the words again is az titanag al Hashem. Just a second, I forgot the quote. Where is it from? Okay, that's Isaiah 58, verse 14. Okay, which means about the prophecies of the destination, the destiny of all humanity. Then you will have the pleasure from God. Youdkevitch b'matei haaretz, and so on. It's on all the promises. It's about that. But the word is az titanag al Hashem. As simply could be translated, and then you will have the pleasure coming from God. But the word as in the Zohar teachings is, if you look at the word as, you can see also it's a beginning of the song of the Red Sea. Az Yashir Moshe. What is that as? Aleph Zayin means about in future days to come. But as is more important. So do I have to sit over here and wait for that to come? As is also a number. In Hebrew, every letter is also a number. As is the number 8. And we learned from Parashat Shmini, the previous parashot of this book of Leviticus, the book of Vayikra, number 8 is a symbol of the direction beyond the physical limitation, which means we learned when you think logically with your mind, you can think about going right or left, forwards, backwards, up and down. This is 6. And yourself is number 7, because you can go very deep into yourself. There's only 7 directions in the human logic. But when a person elevates himself and trains himself to rise to the spiritual world, this is called the 8th direction. And that 8th direction is what we call outside of the box. Now, so what if I don't think outside the box? I have a problem, because the moment I am locked inside the box, I can have my own belief system about who we are, what we are, and what are we supposed to get in our world. And if your mind, your belief system is stuck in the box, in the vicinity, in that limitation of the 5 senses and the logic of the physical 5 senses, what is called materialism, which is the ruling religion for the last few centuries. Materialism, it's all about what I see is what there is, and there's nothing beyond that. What can I measure is what there is. So that means you're stuck inside the box. And when you're stuck inside the box, that means that you are in a quarantine. Now, leprosy, tzara'at in Hebrew, is translated into sagiru in Aramaic. And when the moment it says sagiru, sagiru in Hebrew is sagur, locked down, locked down. A person who is not really spiritual and who is really within the confinement of the worldview of materialism, he is basically locked down. He is a leper. Tzarua. What's the connection to bad mouthing? The moment you're locked down, one of the symptoms of being locked down is the limitation. You're small, you're limited, you're confined, you're a prisoner of your own belief system. The result of that horrible state of mind is that you start to develop a worldview of bad mouthing. And the Zohar says, the first thing, you bad mouth reality. You bad mouth the Shekhinah. Why? When you're stuck and you're starved spiritually and you have no spiritual energy because you're not built for that. You're not wired for that. You're not programmed for that. So everything you look for a pleasure only in the confined materialistic direction. But we know all. One of the major proofs in everyday's life for the confinement and the limitation of the materialistic worldview is that when you enjoy anything materialistic, it's what applies to it is the saying, what is more is less, which means anything that brings you pleasure only on the materialistic realm, the more you have of it, the less you enjoy, the less pleasure you enjoy. For instance, a person can get happiness and pleasure from food, okay? The more you eat the food, the less pleasure you experience. One proof. Let's say try something else, alcohol. The more you drink, the more you look at alcohol as your way to experience pleasure, the less you enjoy alcohol. Sex, same stuff. What else? All of these pleasures in the materialistic world, the more you have, the less fulfilled you'll be, and you will feel the darkness of the depletion of emptiness. And you see that in our world. You can go around the world and you can see the numbers, the societies in which all of these physical pleasures are available. You are safe. You are safe in a free society. You're safe. You don't have to be afraid of tyrants, of robbers. You're like in a dream society. So what else do you have to do? Pleasure. You can drink, you can eat, you can watch movies, you can take a trip, all kinds of stuff. But the problem is those cultures, those civilizations of abundance, there are those civilizations with the highest rates of suicide, the highest rates of consumption of antidepressants. Why is it? The highest rates of alcoholism or maybe drugs and stuff like this. Why is it like this? You're supposed to be so happy. No, because those societies, people of those societies, as long as they are part of the materialistic religion, which means there's only those materialistic worldviews. There's nothing else behind it. You are leopard. You have leprosy because, first of all, you start to develop your bad-mouthing reality. That's why what makes a person rude, okay, and proud. It's all cover up for inner emptiness. As it is said in Aramaic, it's a common Hebrew expression, Istra balagina kishkishkarya. One coin in a jar makes a big noise. If the jar is full of coins, it does not make a noise. You see a person that chatters, that speaks a lot about others with defamation, with derogative way of looking at things, it's because that person is making the noise like a chirping bird because of his inner emptiness. Why does a person has the need to find the fault with society, reality, injustice, the way the world? Because it is the cry out of his soul. I'm starving. I'm dying of hunger. I'm dying of darkness. And that need, that inner pain, that first bad-mouthing is bad-mouthing reality. Okay? Because the moment you deny yourself and access to the spiritual realm, you are in quarantine. You are stuck in the box. And that's the biggest disease of our society, that on one hand, we're supposed to be the happiest society, civilization in the history of humanity. And we are not. Why we're not? Because we are having the biggest amount of leprosy because of being confined. So what does Sefer Yetzirah saying? If you cannot connect to the 8th dimension, then the oneg, pleasure, turns into nega, infliction and blemish and a disease, a malignant disease. Same letters, oneg, pleasure, ayin, nun, gimel, okay? Infliction and disease, nega, nun, gimel, ayin. Same letters, same numerical value, but it's the two sides of the coin. And a human being must make the choice, choosing spirituality. Now, therefore, going back to the previous parasha of the book of Vayikra, you need to understand Vayikra means getting the calling. Every human being has a calling, a spiritual calling from outside the box. The moment you have a faith, a belief system that is made that everything is just materialistic, there's nothing outside the box. There's no box. You deny the jail. You are in jail and you deny the existence of jail. The moment a person knows, has a belief system of the eighth direction, the direction outside the box, then you have a whole system of values. That means that everything is godly, everything is divine, and therefore, whatever happens to you is for the good. It's for you. Therefore, whatever happens around, you see injustice, you see atrocities, you see terrible stuff happening around you, around the world. Instead of saying, you see, there's no justice, it's a terrible world. You realize if everything is for the good, people need to go through those trials and tribulations in order to grow till they finally get out of the box. When do people really become spiritual? Most of the times, out of agony, out of pain, out of trouble, out of pressure, out of finding no other solution to their problems. Then the ego, then the pride, the rudeness goes away, and instead comes the humility. I do not know. I do not see. I do not understand, but I know there's something bigger outside the box. The moment I'm connected to that, I stop bad-mouthing reality. I stop bad-mouthing other people. Why do I have a need to bad-mouth somebody else? Revenge. I hate them. I can't stand them or their kind. The moment I hate them, the moment I cannot stand their kind, it's because I feel hurt. Why do I feel hurt? If everything is for the good, and there's nothing but God. So if they hurt me, it's because to give me a lesson. And I have to take my lesson instead of, don't attack the stick. The stick does not attack you. It's the hand holding the stick. It's a brain that gave the order to the hand to hold the stick and hit you. So what do you have about the stick? What do you have about that person? Why did that person come into your life and bring you that pain or that agony? It's because you have a tikkun, a growth to make. And that's why we read that in the Zohar, and the Zohar continues. Okay, verse 18. פתח ואמר, he opened and said, ולקח למטהר שתי ציפורים, חיות ואזור. So on, he goes back to the verses we read in the Torah. בואו ראה, come and see. אדם העוסק בעבודת ריבונו ועוסק בתורה, a person who is occupying himself, applying himself to be doing the work of his master. What's the work of his master? What's the work of our master? When we really apply ourselves in everything we do, just how can I connect to the dimension beyond the box? How can I connect to the eighth dimension in every action that I do, which means selling and buying and praying, doing business. It's all trying to see what's the dimension beyond and outside the box. How do I make my actions spiritual? Okay? Then when a person does that, then the Holy Blessed Be and the Shekhinah, the Divine Spirit, the Holy Spirit dwell upon that person. He has that godly touch because he brought it from outside the box, inside, into his own life, and now he has ownership. Why? We were created to be creators, so that's why we all have been created in a dark space. What is this dark space? The 6 directions of the physical existence. And we all have to redeem ourselves from that space. Okay? But the moment the person is letting himself to be a servant, a slave of materialistic state of mind, or the concept of materialism, then he becomes impure. The word in Hebrew is not impure. The word in Hebrew is tameh. And tameh comes from the word atum, which means blocked. The light of God does not go through. Tameh is blocked. The opposite in Hebrew is zach. Zach, pure, is like, how do you say glass in Hebrew? Zechuchit. Why? Where the light can go through it. That's what purity is about. You can deliver, pass through the light inside yourself from outside the box. So when a person is trying to purify himself, to repent, to go back to spirituality, which, what does it mean going back? I've never been spiritual in my life. Yeah, but your soul is. Your soul comes from the other dimension. Your soul comes and your soul yearns to go back into that spiritual dimension connection. So that's why it's called returning, teshuvah, not repenting, returning to the original state of being free from any box, any quarantine. So the moment a person tries and makes the efforts, how can I go to a place my mind has never been to? Okay? That's why it says, Habali taher mesayim biyado. Whoever makes the effort to purify, to sanctify himself, they will help him. Who's they? Other souls, angels. There's a whole system outside the box that will help us to make that quantum leap from being blocked in leprosy, and then we badmouth others, we badmouth reality. Everything is just to justify our rudeness, our pride, which is all empty, out of total emptiness. Okay? A person who's really full with pleasure has no need for pride. He has no need to feel stronger, bigger, wiser than somebody else. Only when we feel real deep pain of hunger, okay, only then we have the need to hurt somebody else. But when somebody is fulfilled with pure godly pleasure, there's no need. On the contrary, you cannot just share it with others. That's your first and only most important motivation. Okay? So when we feel like hurting other people, it's to show us that we are disconnected. Well, how are we going to stop that pain? Connecting to the godly light beyond the five senses, beyond the box. Okay, so just a second. So what did we say? So I'm skipping right now to verse 49. And here, the second part of the parasha is not about people who had leprosy, but it's about houses who had leprosy. And the Zohar explains it. I won't go into it right now, that when, maybe in a little detail, we go to that part in the book of Leviticus, chapter 14, verse 33. And it says over there, when you come to the land of Canaan, that I'm giving you as an inheritance, and I will give, ונתתי נגע צרעת בבית ארץ אחוזתכם. I will give nega, tzarat, the blemish and the infliction of leprosy in the houses you're going to inherit. And the Zohar is asking, וחיזה שכרם הטוב שימצא נגע אצל אותם הזוכים להיכנס לארץ? That's the good reward that all of those people who went through Egypt, made it all the way, and finally came into the promised land. And now what you're promising them? You'll have houses with leprosy. Wow, this is really exciting. correct? No, it's not. Well, what is this leprosy story? And the story is the Zohar is saying when you build something, when you create something, when you say something, your intention is the spirit of what you generate. Now, especially when you build a house. It's also about baking and cooking. You know, if you go to a restaurant, my uncle used to teach me, when you go to a restaurant, you know, look, ask for the bathroom, and usually on the way to the bathroom, you can find the kitchen. Okay? So look in the kitchen and see how it looks like. If it's dirty, or if you see people cursing each other and angry, don't touch the food. Why? Because we know very well when people are very angry and upset and hateful, the food they were making, the houses they will be building will be poisoned with negative energy. Okay? That's how it works. So, but in the land of Canaan, it was worse than that. The Canaanites, the Zohar says, were full of dark, black magic. Today, with modern archaeology, every place in Israel that you dig and you find a Canaanite dwelling, you find idol worshiping tools of witchcraft and all kinds of stuff like this. Every room, they were obsessed with witchcraft, with dark magic. That's what the Zohar says, and today archaeology just proves it right. So when they build a home, a house, okay, they would make a ceremony of the cornerstone, the Zohar teaches us. And when they put the cornerstone, they will summon in their forces of darkness, idol worshiping. Okay, they will invite it to dwell on the house, and it will come and dwell on the house because humans have the power to invite in, to vent in forces, either positive or negative, because if you allow positive, you have to allow negative to have free will. So when the Israelites came to the country and the Canaanites ran away, and the Israelites took the houses, some of the houses, the negativity was too strong for all the positive light that they brought in. A mezuzah, prayers, happiness, charity, whatever they put inside the house, learning Torah, that brought positive energy to the house. Usually, it drove away the negative energy that was there by its own builders. But what if it was not strong enough? Okay, so the Zohar is saying something very important to understand. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said, I'm reading verse 49 in the Zohar Perush HaSulam. כאן אני צריך לומר דבר שלמדתי מאבי. I have to mention something I learned from my father, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. בואו ראה, come and see. אנחנו לומדים כאן מנגע הבית, we learn from the nega of the houses, the infliction of the houses. כי כשרוח הטומאה שורה בבית, when an impure spirit, impurity dwells in the house, הקדוש ברוך הוא רוצה לתאר את הבית, then the Creator wants to purify the house. He sends the negat sarat, the infliction of the leprosy, into the house. Why? Now we learn, but God will send impurity. No, it's the negat sarat, what we see humans as an infliction, as leprosy, as quarantine, as pain, as the pain of being locked in, that pain is a blessing. A blessing how? The only way to purify the house is to see the leprosy. The only way a person knows he has to purify himself is to be blemished and to feel pain and suffering. That's the only thing that will get us and drive us outside the box. Because we are so lazy. will get stuck in the box and we will worship idols forever. Worship idols? Who are the idols of the ancient world? There was the god of beauty, Venus. It was all about sexual pleasures. There was the god of war, Mars. It's only worshiping the power of wars and killing. If you go to all of these gods, these gods were not gods in heavens. They're basically the different aspects of of selfishness and the evil inclination of every human being. People worship those forces. And what does it mean they worship those forces? It's acknowledging these forces control us, they control humanity, they control the world. There's no way outside of this jail. That's called idol worshiping. Today, we call the priests of idol worshiping psychologists. What can we do? Human beings, they have anger, they have hate. You just have to manage those emotions. Okay? That's idol worshiping the moment you acknowledge it and you welcome it because that's the way I am. That's the way we are. No, it's not. We experience those forces as long as we are confined to our box of materialistic vision. But the moment we commit to connect to the endlessness of God and the Creator and its great love, unconditional, endless love, when this becomes our calling, we can redeem ourselves from our dungeon. How do we do that? First of all, acknowledging the awareness that there is something beyond. Second thing, realizing that all of these gods that we submit to in our lives of materialism, that what's important is how much money I have. What's important is how much sex can I get. What's important is how much power I can have over others, and so on and so forth. These are the idols of our civilization. The moment I redeem myself from them and I fight to be above it, outside the box, connecting to godliness and unconditional love, then the pleasure will be unlimited. Then the spiritual growth will be unlimited. Then we can really find our calling. And that is the secret of this parasha. It is this year before Passover, because Passover is Chag HaCherut, the holy day of liberty. What is liberty if you cannot liberate yourself from your own box, from your own evil inclination, from your own pantheon of gods, the god of anger, the god of, which is basically bad-mouthing reality. This is why we have to prepare ourselves to Passover, of removing the chametz, the sourness. Chametz in Hebrew is sour, but it also means lehachmitz, to miss the opportunity. We are godly, all of us, and every lifespan that we have, every day, these are opportunities to connect to divinity, to connect to godliness. If we do not, we connect instead to what? Pain, bad-mouthing, reality, ourselves, people around us, and that's why it's called chametz, the evil inclination. It's about missing the opportunity. So I wish everyone, all of us, that this message will come out, and that's the only way humanity can redeem itself from its own inflictions and leprosy and being busy, stuck in jail. Thank you so much.